Alice Cooper, rock legend, the man who invented shock rock, and he became really embarrassed on our photo shoot after I asked a very innocent question. Hi, I'm Adam Knott. Welcome to my channel where I give you an insight into the world of celebrity and I tell you the stories behind my photos. My one-on-one photo shoot with Alice Cooper and how it all went wrong and how I made him feel very awkward in the shoot. It was just Alice and I in a hotel room and it became very uncomfortable. Let me tell you what happened. The backstory. Alice Cooper, rock legend, rock icon, great songwriter. He invented shock rock. He helped shape heavy metal music. He sold out arenas around the world, platinum albums. He was a living legend. And it was my job to get a cover for a magazine. The brief. We want a great portrait of Alice Cooper. He's a rock icon and we want to get something iconic. You've got him in a hotel room, just you and Alice, no hair, no makeup, no stylist, nothing. And you've got 5 minutes. Off you go. Now, that is a difficult brief for a photographer to shoot. You've got to come up with an iconic portrait. Coming up with an iconic portrait is easier said than done. But this was my job as a photographer and this is what we have to do. Before the shoot. Now, Alice Cooper had lived a hard life. He had struggled with addictions, but I was told by his PR people he was over the addictions, if you ever get over an addiction. But he was clean. But you can never be sure when you're photographing celebrities. Sometimes it is PR, that they are over an addiction, but they're still using. And when people are using, it can get very difficult on a photo shoot. Alice Cooper was a hard man and he'd had a hard life. So I thought, I'm going to light him with a hard light source. A light source that gives you hard shadows, that brings out the history on the face. That was my goal, that was the intention. But it got very awkward very quickly. The location was a hotel room. It's generally always a hotel room. And this time I was placed in a hotel room with no furniture, again. I seem to always be getting hotel rooms with no furniture to photograph these people. It makes it very difficult, but I try and look at it as though it's my own little private studio. So I arrived at the hotel, I set up my lights, I put one chair in there and I had it near the window. And then I got it all ready to go for Alice's arrival. The arrival. Alice Cooper walks into the hotel room by himself. No entourage, no PR, no one. And he just walks in the door and he actually looked a little bit bored and uninterested. And he just looked at me and said, "Hi, where do you want me?" And I said, "Oh, if you could sit over here, please, Alice. Oh, it's great to meet you." And he's like, "Oh." He didn't seem very interested and he seemed like he didn't want to be there. But that's okay. He gets photographed hundreds, thousands of times whenever he travels around the world. But I had a job to do. I had to capture that history on his face. And I was pretty excited. The shoot. We started shooting. Alice Cooper, he was still looking bored. He just had this look on his face of just... It was just nothing going on there. I could tell he didn't want to be there. But I wanted to really capture that history. So we just warmed up together. I said, "Alice, if you could look straight down the camera lens, look off, back at the lens, look at the other direction." He was warming up and I was warming up. And this is sometimes what happens on a photo shoot. Both the sitter and the photographer have to warm up before they start getting anything good together. The eyes. The eyes of Alice Cooper became the centre of interest for my photographs. Because when I looked at his face through the viewfinder, and what I did, I used a telephoto lens, so I really zoomed in close to the face so I could create a really tight portrait. I noticed it was the eyes that had all the history. Yes, and we've all heard the eyes are the windows to the soul, but they really are on Alice Cooper. You look at his eyes and there's a lot going on there. Sure, he started off feeling bored and uninterested, but when we warmed up, I could tell there was something really coming through those eyes, so I really made sure that the eyes became the main focus of the shoot. Now, the eyes had so much emotion starting to bubble away inside them, but I thought, I can't have him always looking straight down the lens, because I know for the viewer, sometimes it can be too much. Sometimes when a person is looking straight down the lens, it can be too much for the viewer. It can actually repel the viewer. So that's why sometimes with certain sitters, you have to make sure that they're actually looking just off camera or looking away. Because sometimes the eyes can be too intense for the viewer when they're looking at the image. Remember the goal of a magazine photographer. We want to stop the viewer from turning the page. Or in today's world, we want to stop the viewer from scrolling. Sometimes the eyes can be too much. It can be literally you turn the page or you scroll, you see an image, you're like, oh, that's too much. And you quickly scroll or turn past it. So you've got to make sure that we don't bring too much into the shot so it repels the viewer. So we were sitting there in the hotel room, just him and I. Now I'm going to contradict myself now, because I was just saying that it can be too much, but sometimes on a photo shoot, you've got to go too much. You've got to go beyond. You've got to take it further than what you really think is acceptable. Sometimes you try and get something that has too much emotion in it, and then you can pull it back. Like a director on a film set or an actor or actress. You give a lot of emotion, but sometimes it's the withheld emotion. You've got to find that correct, perfect balance for the sitter in the photograph. You don't want too much and you don't want too little. There's nothing worse than a photograph of a famous person and they're bored. There's nothing going on. You've got to have something happening behind the eyes and behind the face. Unfortunately, this is where it started to go wrong. I use an old actor's trick. It comes from Spencer Tracy. He's a great old actor. Look up some of his movies. He talked about acting as though if you think the thoughts, the look comes over your face. So at this point in the shoot, I wanted to get as much emotion out of him as possible. So what I often do is I will ask the celebrity, can you think of a happy moment from your life? Can you think of something sad, something emotional? Think of the birth of your child. Think of your wedding day. Think of whatever it is. I'm trying to get them to think of something that will bring this look or emotion through their face. So I said to Alice, I said, these are really good photographs. I said, but I'm going to get you to not look straight down the lens, just look a little bit off camera. I didn't tell him why. I didn't want to tell him that it was possibly too much for the viewer. And I said, what I want you to do, I want you to think of something in your life that made you happy. Think of the last time you were here in Australia. Think of something memorable that happened then. And he looked at me and he said, I can't remember my last time here in Australia. And I said, what do you mean? He said, not only can I not remember my last time here in Australia, I can't remember the decade. He said, I have trouble remembering it because I was addicted to cocaine and I can't remember anything from that time in my life. I was like, oh. And I felt like what I'd done, I'd accidentally or innocently, I'd shamed him. And there was this look of sort of like shame that came across his face. And I kept shooting and I said, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel awkward. And he's like, oh no, that's okay. And but it was very awkward. And it became for a very awkward moment. I kept shooting, but I thought, oh, my technique of getting someone to remember something from their past, it didn't work this time. It actually, I felt the shoot sort of went backwards from there. I didn't get that great emotional shot I was hoping for, but I realised later I'd already got the shot before we even attempted these emotional portraits, I should say. So we kept shooting. And to recover from the situation, the awkward moment, I said to him, Alice, just focus on something out the window there. And I said, I'll do the rest. I said, don't worry. And I thought, but I really do have to try and... There was an awkward silence in the room, an awkward energy. So everything went a bit flat after that. So I said to him, oh, I hear you love golf. Are you going to get a game in Australia? And that's when his face lit up. He was like, oh, yes, I love golf. You know, I've been playing this long. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. I can tell he absolutely loves golf. And he still does. I think he plays every day. And then he looked at me and he said, oh, do you play golf? And I was like, no, I don't. I've never played. And then I felt the energy of the room once again just go down. It just became very awkward again. It was a strange experience. I really liked Alice Cooper. And one thing people don't realise about Alice Cooper is he has struggled with addictions, but he has also helped a lot of other people with their addictions and getting over their addictions. And not many people know this. He has been a huge support for many, many people out there, and famous people that have had addictions, but he's helped them get through it. So you've really got to admire the person. So I'm hoping some of this history comes across his face today. With portrait photography, should the sitter feel comfortable on a shoot? Generally, I'm not sure. It's a yes and a no answer. If a person feels comfortable, they'll look comfortable. But sometimes when a person does not feel comfortable, if they feel awkward or they feel embarrassed or they do have shame, it does make for a better portrait. So whether the photographer should have a good relationship with the sitter, I'm not sure of that either. I don't think that matters. I really don't think a photographer is there to be friends with the sitter. You are there to get the best out of the sitter that you possibly can. And remember, our job as photographers is to get the best image possible. To get an image that stops the viewer from turning the page. Alice Cooper has had an amazing life. You should read some of his books, or better still, get them on audiobooks. It has been absolutely incredible. That's why he's got all this history on his face. So I hope I captured some of that history, and I hope I did him justice. He's a great human being, and I think he's a wonderful musician. He still tours, so make sure you go and see him. So please let me know what you think, and please have a look at my playlists that are in the playlist section. Have a look at some of my courses, look at my website, look at the ebooks, workbooks. I've got a whole bunch of goodies you might like. And remember to please like and subscribe. It would really help me and help the channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.